The Celtics Talk podcast is presented by 24autogroup.com. 11 locations across New England.
When we sat down with Jaylen Brown before the start of the season, we asked him for some goals for this team over the course of the 82-game season. And one of the things he pointed to kind of often was a desire for everybody on the Celtics starting five. And remember, they had just acquired Jrue Holiday to get all defense votes. And it's one of those things there, you know what he means, and this is at a point where you're moving on from Robert Williams and Marcus Smart. You're thinking, okay, what's the likelihood that everyone in the starting five could actually get all defense votes? You start thinking about it. Well, Jrue Holiday and Derek White are all defense backcourt. They're definitely going to be on there. Porzingis, maybe you weren't overly familiar with his defensive prowess before he arrived here, but you knew he could be a backline deterrent. Felt like a good chance that he could get in there. Jason Tatum, when engaged with his length, his ability to get in passing lanes and fluster opponents, certainly was on there. It almost felt like Jaylen was the one guy that probably had to go up a level in order to be in that conversation, especially when you consider all the talent around here. Well, fast forward just about 6 months, and here we are through 74 games, and I do believe Jaylen Brown deserves consideration for all defense. Now, look, the numbers have come back to earth a little bit at the start of the year. He was one of the, among high-volume guys, defending at least 10 shots. He was like top 5. I think at one point he was leading the league. We did the number on Post Up at one point. And he was number 1 in the league, was top 5 in defensive field goal differential, which is crazy when you consider a lot of the centers get that benefit because the opponent shoots such a high percentage. But Jaylen just keeps taking on the challenge of defending other teams' best scorers. There'll be nights where he takes on Jamal Murray or Luka, and he tends to play some of his best defense. And on Saturday night, in a game in which the Celtics looked a little rocky early, it was Jaylen who decided to take on the challenge of being the primary defender on Zion Williamson. And look, he got a lot of help. We're going to talk about Kristaps Porzingis being on that back line and not being the primary guy on Zion. And it totally changed sort of the complexion of the game. The Celtics allow 11 third-quarter points and find a way to really kind of dominate the middle frames and race away from the New Orleans Pelicans. And you just got to give Jaylen credit. This is just sort of what he does now, and I feel like I keep going back to it. It started in last year's playoffs against Philadelphia. Like the Celtics had used him as an on-ball defender, but putting him on James Harden just heightened his alertness. He didn't have those moments where he was kind of fell asleep or got caught ball watching. Instead, he was engaged at the point of attack and was fantastic. Now, on this night, Zion was off the ball for a lot of it, and Jaylen still just kind of had to follow him and hound him and run through screens, and he was great. And he definitely deserves all defense consideration. There's just probably too much talent here for him to really place high, but I am starting to wonder if 4 or 5 Celtics end up getting votes for all defense this year, Jaylen Brown probably deserves to be on there. What's up, everybody? POSTGAME POD 74 coming to you after the Celtics take down the Pelicans 104-92. Stop number 5, or well, I guess stop number 4 because they were in Atlanta twice, of this 6-game road trip. A palate cleanser after the disasters in Atlanta. The Celtics, with their top 10 healthy, sort of dust off the defense that we know they're capable of. And now, mind you, that's coming after they gave up 37 points and let the Pelicans hit 10 of their first 15 shots. And probably didn't feel a whole by like 5:30 Eastern, you weren't feeling great about the Celtics' week of play. And yet, from then on, they really kind of locked in with Jaylen spearheading it. I'll admit, you guys know I'm tend to be a little bit over emotional after losses, if only because I think this team is so, even on nights where they're not completely locked in or when there's missteps, this team is still talented enough, and some of those late game miscues and late game, poor execution or poor spacing, whatever the case may be, does drive you nuts a little bit. And I'll continue to reaffirm this. It's in large part because I don't want to see it happen in the postseason when this team is trying to really capture its most desired goals. And so this was a nice reminder of how good they can be on the defensive end. You sort of feel like this team, as good as it is offensively, and they might set the NBA record for offensive rating, ultimately what they accomplish comes down to, can they lock in defensively when they need to? And on this night, after a poor first quarter, they kind of just dusted themselves off, said enough of this, and found a way to get to the finish line. I thought they were much, some of the first quarter woes could be chalked up to being sloppy with the ball, gave the Pelicans and Zion some transition opportunities. But once they were engaged, once they forced them to play in the half court, with no Brandon Ingram, the Pelicans just don't have enough offensive talent to really hurt you, at least if you're doing a better job keeping Zion away from the basket. And so Zion took advantage of some defensive lapses and certainly was able to go right at Kristaps Porzingis early on. But once Jalen started muscling him, forcing him to work to get to his spots, forcing him to play through some physicality to get to the rim, and then Kristaps rushing over with the help, Celtics locked in and got to the finish line of it's weird to call it a much needed win. Like I said, I think it's just I'll just call it the palate cleanser, because we knew the two Atlanta games were not indicative of what this team is capable of. Didn't make them any less maddening that they found different ways to lose it, whether it was being poor on the glass or just late game execution. But good to go in there against a Pelicans team that is sort of in the thick of it in the Western Conference. Would have loved to have seen them have Brandon Ingram out there, see how that would have changed the equation. Would have forced the Celtics to be a little bit more diligent defensively. But anytime you can hold a team to 20, 11, and 24 points over the final three quarters is quite a night and quite a testament to what this team can do defensively. Like I said, I went through those numbers. I think Jalen's down to minus 2.4% differential. A couple guys on the team have leapfrogged, and before it was just I think only Kristaps Porzingis was in front of him in terms of differential, and now I think Jrue and maybe even Derek White have gotten up ahead of him. But it doesn't take away from what Jalen is able to do. It's also some flukiness with the way NBA tracks, and sometimes you can't get a great gauge on just how good they are defensively. But I just think what I can say for certain is when you watch these games, you do feel like Jalen has just taken that up a level, that he's had nights like this where he's okay, where he's not the focal point of the offense, where everybody else is doing their thing, and he's getting some points. I think he got 17 tonight. But it's more the focus on, this is going to help my team win the most, is me engaging in this joust with Zion and forcing him to work. Had one kind of fluky whistle go against them, probably I think 5:24 to go in the third quarter, and you could just see Jalen was kind of laughing about it. Zion didn't make a whole lot of free throws, so it didn't matter. But I just love that mindset of, if we're going to be successful, I need to take on this challenge. We've seen various instances of the superstars, the Jays doing it, whether certainly Jalen with Luka, but Jason taking on SGA in limited reps. I'd like to see these guys. I'd like to see Jason do it more often. But undeniably, Jalen has been willing to take on that challenge repeatedly this year and deserves to be rewarded for it. It does help when you have Kristaps and Al and others helping you out, and even Xavier Tillman getting some run in this one with his versatility. But I just think Jalen really go back and watch the first possession of the third quarter, and Jalen just sort of sets a tone with the way he defends Zion, and it just sort of snowballed from there. Celtics back in the win column. All right, here's more from our postgame show.
Kristaps, the defense went to another level after that first quarter. What changed for you guys?
We just knew we couldn't be in cruise control. these teams are hungry. They need these wins. Maybe we, at this point of the season, don't need them as much, but still we want to come out here and compete at a high level every night. And once we hit another gear, the game just flipped.
You had a double-double to go along with 4 blocks. How were you able to get some advantage with your size?
Yeah, I feel like last game I didn't play up to my level on all aspects of the game. And even tonight, the 3-ball wasn't falling for me. But there are so many ways how me and us as a team, we can impact the game if things are not going perfect for us. And that's what I did tonight. I just also turned up another notch, and that's what we're going to need the rest of this regular season, then even more in the postseason.
You said yourself, you guys may not need these wins. And Joe told us pregame, the temperature in the locker room hasn't changed, but why was it important to get this one for you guys?
We just don't want to. We want to be a hungry team no matter what. We want to, we haven't done anything, and then back-to-back losses to Atlanta. It's not our DNA, and it just didn't sit right with us. So we came out here tonight and got us a dub.
Question about it, Kristaps. Thank you. Congrats.
Thank you.
All right, let's bring in Jrue and Eddie now, joining us once again from New Orleans. And Eddie, I'll start with you. Kristaps Porzingis just talking about those 2 losses in Atlanta didn't really sit right. Clearly, they were more assertive, more aggressive defensively, and it really sounded like that's where you saw this game changing in the second quarter.
Yeah, it was definitely with their defense. And Porzingis spearheaded. He got a couple blocks there in that second quarter. And then also I thought the Jaylen Brown guarding Zion Williamson, not giving him a full head of steam to come downhill, like pressuring him. And we turned him over a couple times, made it uncomfortable. Before you know it, he missed some easy bunnies. And then after he missed the easy bunny, he went to the free throw line. He missed free throws. I thought our defense changed everything. And it was the intensity. I thought defensive intensity, not only the intensity, but the connectivity that they had with one another. They were on the proverbial string tonight. For sure.
And you know why Kristaps Porzingis had such a good game tonight?
Talk
Ed?
to me.
Because I gave him a high five in the tunnel on the way in.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
Oh God,
listen to him.
Hey,
listen to him.
Jrue, this is a big time matchup. Sometimes physicality is hard to see on TV, but it seemed like today the Celtics answered the call to the physicality after the first quarter.
You know what, Scal, and you'll appreciate this. This is the most excited I've been to have the courtside seat, as opposed to, being upstairs where we are in some of the arenas, because I really wanted to see Zion up close and personal. And in the first quarter, he was amazing, man.
No, he was amazing, but we were giving him the opportunity to get downhill. Yeah. And he was just taking up that space. Everybody thinks that you're supposed to sag off of him because he doesn't shoot shots. He wants to get where he's going. But once he gets like a locomotive, right, coming downhill, it's hard to stop him. And his balance is great. His center of gravity is off the charts, and his strength and explosion is different. And seeing it in person, you really respect what he brings to the table. So seeing what Jaylen Brown did 100%. Tonight, I have a newfound respect for how physical he was.
And you know what I compare it to, Scal, is when we were in Oklahoma City. I brought this up a few times since that game, but when Jason Tatum said, I got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander after he was cooking the Celtics for the first half of that game, Tatum took that assignment and really shut him down the stretch. I know OKC ended up winning that game, but Brown sort of did the same thing with Zion. And we didn't really know how the Celtics would deal with Williamson tonight, because we saw a lot of Jrue Holiday. He was the main defender on him in the first matchup at the Garden. Tonight it was mostly Jaylen Brown. I give him a ton of credit because he was getting beaten up out there. He was out here falling on wet spots. I think he's going to have to throw those shoes away. I don't know what he was wearing, but he was slipping and sliding, and he was still playing that well.
Yeah, that might be the last time he wears those, but yeah. If he's going to play defense like that, and it was the shoes, was it because of the shoes, then maybe wear them again. I mean, he still played well offensively, but I thought defensively, just the way he dug in and took the physical challenge against a physically imposing player like Zion Williamson. We all know what he brings to the table, and Jaylen Brown, not one time did he back down. I mean, he picked him up at half court, and sometimes that's what it takes. It's the small things that changes how you're going to approach it. So the team seen how hard he was playing. They seen Kristaps getting block shots. Next thing you know, their level went to a whole nother level.
Okay, there you go. How you feeling?
Better. So, look, what I really liked was that third quarter. They locked in defensively, but go back and watch it. Jaylen Brown sets the tone on the very first possession of that half by taking on Zion, taking a couple hits, staying with it. And then from there on, he just made Zion's night tough. Wasn't always perfect, had one kind of ticky-tack foul, got him to the line and wasn't making free throws, so it didn't really matter. But Jalen's been doing this in spurts throughout the season where it's just like he looks across and says, all right, I'm going to go guard one of the best players on that team. Like in a game like this, when you're on a 2-game losing streak and you just kind of want to turn off that water when Zion had it going, I thought Jalen really just was kind of the difference maker in setting the tone tonight. The numbers have slid back a little bit. His defensive field goal percentage was like one of the best in the league earlier in the year, but hasn't been fearful of this and is actually one of the better players on the Celtics in terms of holding an opponent below their expected percentage. And so credit to Jalen. He came into the year, Giles, wanting all defense.
Yeah.
Some of us laughed at it. Like, I mean, you look at the team and you're like, Derek and Jrue and even Porzingis on the back line. It was hard to see how Jaylen Brown was going to get in that all-defense conversation. I think he's going to get votes.
Yeah. And I hate to go back to it, but it's almost – when you're looking at the other night when DeJounte Murray's going off, I was kind of curious why we didn't see Jalen kind of just decide, all right, enough's enough. Because we've seen that from him this season, as you brought up in certain times. Anthony Edwards is the moment that always comes to mind for me, that game against Minnesota when it went to overtime, and he just locked him absolutely down. Yeah, and what a luxury. Like, I know Jrue mentioned on the broadcast, it kind of felt like when Tatum says, okay, I want to go guard SGA. I think this is even more impressive. Like, you're given a whole bunch of size, presumably a lot of strength, but no, because Jalen's like this brick wall at times. And so credit to him for just being, like, not only, like, he has this thing where he always says, I used to have to go tell the coaches I want that matchup. Now they know, and they're just like, all right, Jalen, go take care of that. And they trust him in that situation, especially he can sometimes get lost when he's on shooters and ball watching and stuff like that, but tonight, completely locked in, even as Zion was sort of off the ball. And KP as well on the back line, obviously providing that second layer of defense. Zion Williamson really went after Porzingis early in this game, and he got off to a phenomenal start. But Kristaps Porzingis, I was saying to Scal, I thought this was maybe the best 48 minutes we've seen from him in a long, long time. Yeah, like ever since that, whatever was hamstring injury that kept him out for a few games, it felt like he just hasn't quite been himself. And just like you said at the start, I'm thinking, oh no, like our team's kind of starting to identify that you can at least go at him a little bit, you can have some success, and certainly Zion did earlier. It was clear that the Celtics got their guys, whether it was second quarter or at half, and we're like, look, someone's got to put a little resistance on Zion and then let Kristaps come over and be that back line of defense. And none of the shooters going at the rim for New Orleans wanted any part of that. That's the luxury of KP, where he's going to be in that drop, and he's got to be ready to kind of come over with that help. But when he does, he's a difference maker, because even if he's not blocking the shots, and he had a few here, you're just thinking about it, like, where is he? Is he going to roam off that shooter, and is he going to be a detriment at the rim, and so a deterrent at the rim? So I just like that they kind of it starts up front. You got to have strong perimeter defense. Can't just let those guys get to the basket. And you got to keep them out of trouble with some matchups. But he played great. Complete team effort tonight, too, because he had all 5 starters in double figures. Al Horford also had 9 points. But I think sometimes it gets lost. Jrue Holiday, his impact on the game, 13 points. He had 8 rebounds, 7 assists, a couple steals as well. But then defensively, it's just what did you see from Jrue Holiday? So same deal. He was one of the ones taking turns on Zion early. Didn't have as much success as I thought Jalen did in that matchup. But Drew's always doing something, always making people uncomfortable, chasing guys around the perimeter. Knew who to kind of cheat off of, who to challenge to shoot. And then he throws in, a little bit of offense that you needed to get yourself going. Spreads it out. Like, again, the line doesn't jump off the page, but he's kind of messing around there. It's 13, 8, 7, 2. Yeah. Filling it up. Yeah. Plus, he had a little motivation just to play there. Right. You don't want to go back there and not play well. So he played great. Yeah, he did. And actually, Jrue Holiday talking back in New Orleans. Let's hear from Jrue.
Defensively, after the first quarter, you guys really locked down. What was the difference there?
I think we were just responding. They came out very strong in that first quarter. Very physical, playing great defense, and kind of getting out in transition. Had us turning the ball over, so just wanted to elevate our play and kind of match the energy.
Do you need reminders like that you can take it to another level?
I think sometimes you need to get punched in the mouth. Playing these games, and sometimes it just happens, right? But a game like this, with a team like that, where early they can get it going, hard to stop in transition, high flyers, a lot of three-point shooting. it could have gotten out of control, but I'm glad we got it under control.
Third quarter, your defense really took over, and you had a lot of success funneling CJ to where he'd pick up the ball, and then KP would be right there to stop him. What kind of chemistry did you and KP have going tonight to get those stops?
I think it's really just playing together all season, being able to kind of play behind at times, but then when I'm on the ball, KP's talking to me, telling me I got it, and I just funnel it to him and go to his man. So a lot of communication that we've been going over for a while.
We talked before the game, but what kind of job did Jalen do with Zion?
I think he made it difficult for him. I know in that fourth quarter he started going to the free throw line, but before that, it's like he didn't have a light of day. Really physical. You could say that they were fighting and banging out there. So I think being physical with him is the best chance for us to try to keep him off the free throw line and then kind of get their team under control.
Speaking of Zion, you were here for his first year. Just what kind of growth have you seen from him from that point when he was a rookie with you and then now where he's at now?
Yeah, I think it's that leadership. You can see it out there on the court. You can see that he wants more responsibility, more playmaking. You can see him playing point guard in different positions, even if he has to go to the four. But out there, you can see him pointing to go to different places and things like that. So I think his leadership is something that I've seen that's grown.
What's the mental challenge? You guys know that you got it pretty much sewn up. You still have a few weeks left to go. What's the mental challenge of getting up for games?
I think it's taking it every game at a time and doing our best not to disrespect our opponents. These are great players, and we are in the NBA. So even though we feel like we might have a team who might not be making the playoffs, we can't really slack mentally thinking all right, well, they might not come out and play today. I think that helps us lead into the playoffs, having that toughness, that mental toughness to be able to respond and beat anybody if it's the 15th team or, I guess, the second. So.
You guys probably don't think about it this way, but on the outside, a game like this kind of serves like a good reminder, oh, this is how good the Celtics defense can be. Do you guys think about it like that at all? And do you think it sends any kind of message at all?
I don't know if we're here to send a message. So I haven't really thought about it that way. I think it's about preparing for what's to come and knowing that we have different looks that we can give. We can play different lineups, and 1 through 15, anybody go out there and give it their all, and we'll play well together is what I think is important.
Offensively, you guys went with the ball in Derek's hands a lot in the fourth quarter. It's a little bit different than you guys normally do. What was the kind of the plan there, and just how much does that kind of put the trust in just kind of anybody to run that offense late?
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of a matchup, and again, we know what Derek is capable of. Obviously, a shooting threat, getting to the paint with a floater, but I think making the right play is the biggest part. So, giving him the ball, him and KP going screen and roll, and making a play out of it is something that we trust DY with.
Jrue, you spent the most of your years, your NBA career here in New Orleans. Does it ever feel weird coming back here?
No, I didn't feel weird. It feels like home. A lot of people that I love, a lot of people that I love to see, a lot of good food spots that I try to go to. Not here long enough, but it's always good to come back.
Celtics wrap up this 6-game road trip on Monday night against the Hornets. Yes, it is Jason Tatum's favorite scenario. The Monday night in Charlotte on League Pass. Buckle up. These tend to be some of his better nights, even though Celtics had a little bit of trouble down there in Charlotte earlier this year. So we know how this goes. Tatum loves playing the Hornets, loves the fact that, some Duke fans tend to travel over and support him inside the Spectrum Center. The other layer here, Grant Williams on the other side. In his new home, we know he will be motivated. So the Celtics gotta kind of find a way to pack some of this momentum from the New Orleans win and be ready on Monday night. You can't look past this Charlotte team just because they are lottery bound. Grant's been good, revitalized after his own little disaster situation in Dallas. So eager to see if Tatum can continue to show why Monday nights on League Pass in Charlotte are some of his favorite games. We'll be here with you on the post-game pod getting you recapped from this trip, and hopefully the Celtics defense travels on the last night of the trip. Go like, subscribe, check us out on the YouTube page. Happy Easter, everybody. We'll catch you next time on the Celtics Talk Podcast.